Hey, it's Denise. Um, don't by, don't be fooled by the incredibly washed out, tired look. Yeah, I'm washed out, and yeah, I'm tired. It was a long day, but it was a good day. I'm home. Um, I went to Westchester Medical Center this morning and saw the retina specialist who did both of the procedures on my eye this past week. And I am beyond thrilled to be reporting to you that I have 20/20 vision back in my left eye. Um, there was a chance that I could have been completely blind in that eye, and my vision with the procedures they did saved my vision, which was 20/20 before this happened. Once again, if I can say nothing else that you hear from this video, hear from me, please. If you feel something is wrong, whether it be your vision or chest pain or numbness, or if you know something is wrong with your body, don't let embarrassment stop you from getting help. If I had delayed and waited a day or two to go to the doctor, because my eye condition, there was a change in vision, there was no pain. So I definitely could have just been like, let me ignore this and see if it gets better over a couple days. If I had done that, right now, I would probably be permanently blind in my left eye. The fact that I got treatment immediately is the reason that I can see. So please, please, if nothing else, that I've shared about how things went over the last week or so, and this is all in the midst of the craziness of the coronavirus, and a town in the county where Westchester Medical Center is located is being so heavily hit that they're quarantined, that the National Guard is there. I was terrified having to go. Like, I did not want to be going to Westchester. And yet, what were my options? Not go and go blind. I didn't want to go where there was a higher chance of exposing myself to the virus. That we all know what virus I'm talking about. Apparently, if you talk about it by name, it can be seen as inflammatory, and I'm certainly not saying it to panic anybody. I'm saying that I'm just very grateful that I am now not having to be in that area, and I am back home in my lovely, rural, non-crowded, Hey, I stopped at the pharmacy because I had to pick up a prescription on the way home, and there's toilet paper still in the store. So if that doesn't tell you that I live far from the city and the craziness, then I don't know what else will. But like I said, if you know something's wrong, don't be afraid, don't be embarrassed, don't think it's serious enough. Get it checked out right away. I'm not someone who uses the word blessed lightly, but I feel absolutely blessed that I am still able to see. And not just see, but that my full 20/20 vision is still intact after a retinal detachment. So please, if you think something's wrong with you, or if a friend or family member, loved one, is telling you something's wrong, make sure they get help right away, that they don't wait. I'm exhausted. It was such a long day, and there was a ton of traffic. And as we speak, the wind is blowing so hard that I would be not the least bit surprised if we lose power. And you know what? I don't care. I'm sleeping in my own bed tonight for the first time in over 3 weeks. And I am just so happy. I'm home with my son, my dog. You know, we're together and we're home, and that's how it should be. So, thank you, as always. Thank you for watching. I do appreciate. I hope it comes across how much I appreciate that you do take the time. As far as those of you who are following because of you're on a weight loss journey, I doing good. I seem to be maintaining at about 145, and my original maintenance was 160. Then, just in case you haven't seen the previous videos, my dad passed away at the beginning of the year. Basically our whole holiday season sucked this past year. My dad had a stroke in right before Thanksgiving and passed away on January 1st. So obviously I wasn't focused on what I was eating. You know, I had just at the end of October reached my goal weight of 160. And when you're taking care of a dying parent, the last thing you're worrying about is how many grams of protein you're eating or how many calories you're eating. And obviously I just wasn't eating that much. So I did end up losing a little more weight than I planned to. But my doctor was cool with it because they're like, you know, obviously you're not anorexic. You know, this is something that happened because of what happened in your family. I mean, life happens. But, you know, so as you know, I went down. Well, maybe you don't know. If this is the first video of mine that you're looking at, welcome and thank you for watching. But I went downstate to have my when I say downstate, I live at the very northern part of New York State, up closer to the Canadian border than I always say to people, I'm closer to Montreal than Manhattan, to put things into perspective as to where I am. But yeah, I went down 4 hours from home to where my surgeon is, the one who did my vertical sleeve gastrectomy. So I went down to have him do my loose skin removal from my stomach. And I was expecting to be away from home for maybe 2 weeks. I was hoping a little less, but maybe 2 weeks. And a couple days before I would have been coming home is when my retina detached. Actually, I think about it, I would have been coming home the next day. And not that I would wish a retinal detachment on anyone, but if you have to have it, it is so much better to have it when you're near medical facilities that can handle it. And I could have been on the way driving home when that happened, if it had happened the next day. And I wouldn't have gotten to care fast enough, probably. I may not have been able to even safely drive to get myself, you know, the rest of the way somewhere. And the outcome really could have been much worse. So I consider myself lucky that if this had to happen to me, that at least it happened when I was somewhere close to the kind of specialists that you need to take care of you when something like this happens. My weight loss incisions, okay, I had 2 procedures, as I mentioned in the previous video. I had the skin removal, and I also, because I did have the diastasis recti, which is that separation of the abdominal muscles that happens sometimes during pregnancy, I've had that, so I've had my whole, I was going to say my whole life, no, my youngest son's whole life, he's 17, if I like went to do, you know, a crunch, or say if you're lying on your back and pick your feet up, and your abs tense, instead of pulling flat like someone normal, like your abs are supposed to, mine bulge up into a point. Like I would joke that it, you know, looked like aliens trying to pop out when if I would do a crunch, and that's because those muscles had completely separated during the pregnancy. So that was repaired while they had me cut wide open to do the to remove the excess skin. So there's no additional incision required for that because they have you cut so wide open that they have easy access to those muscles at that time. And they were able to do a wonderful repair of them. The drain, the first drain, my surgeon was able to take out at the first visit before things went wrong as far as the eye situation, stopping me from getting to my next visit. I started having a lot of discomfort. I couldn't roll over onto that side. the right side where the drain still was. And I ended up, and I'm not saying to do this, please, if you have other options, don't do this. But I did end up, nurses are the worst patients. I'm going to admit, nurses and doctors, because I know some doctors who do some pretty awful things to themselves without getting someone else to help when they should. I removed the drain because I thought maybe it had just been in too long and it was irritating things, and there was really no drainage coming from it anymore. So that's kind of the criteria that it would have needed to be, that it was okay to remove it. But it was starting to hurt to roll over that way. So yeah, removed it, did, DIY at-home surgery. I mean, all done sterile and stuff, but the next day, then that night, this is after having my retina reattached, I fell and hit my head on a wood floor. In the morning, I called my primary doctor. He was like, come right in. He's wonderful. I know he was booked, and he had me just come right in. He didn't like how I looked, so he did send me first that CAT scan of my head just to be sure, because there was a bump and it hurt. But luckily, no damage as far as no bleeding inside the head, no fracture, no, nothing bad. A bump and a headache. And obviously, it's still sore to touch. I really whacked it. But I said to, while I was in the office, I was like, would you do me a favor and take a look at this? Because, it's hurting, and I showed him where I had removed the drain, and he felt that it was infected, that was why it was hurting. So it wasn't just that it had been in there too long, it had started to get infected. So he put me on an antibiotic for it, and he's wonderful. Again, I have a wonderful doctor, and he is well worth the longer drive to get to, because if you find a doctor that you really feel comfortable in their care and that they take really good care of you, it's worth driving longer to see them. At least I believe it is. So yeah, I'm back on antibiotics for a week, which my stomach doesn't love that, but oh well. You have to deal with it. If you get an infection, you don't want to let it get worse. I'm done. As per the retina specialist today, I am done with the eye drops. So no more eye drops. No more having to sit up straight. That was the first few days. That was really hard. It might sound like a simple thing, but apparently it's not, because he told me that a lot of people, their tear doesn't heal well because they don't take the fact that you can't lie down, not even a little, not even recline a little bit. You have to stay sitting upright. Your head has to be upright. And then leaning whichever way, depending on, when they describe something in terms of the clock, the face of a clock, that my tear was at 1 o'clock. So I had to have my head tilted slightly to the right so that essentially where the tear was would be straight up, because they inject a gas bubble so that, which if you think of a snow globe, the bubble is always going to be directly on top. And they want that bubble pressing against the tear to help it seal back against the wall of the eye. And apparently a lot of people go home and don't take this seriously, that for the first few days you sleep sitting up. I slept on the couch. You sleep sitting propped completely upright, which is killer on your back, and you don't, you just kind of catnap. You can't really sleep like that. But I did it, and he said that's a big part of why it healed as thoroughly as it did. So make sure you follow your directions. You're saying this coming from the woman who removed her own drain. Hey, I knew something was wrong. I just thought it had been there too long. It turns out it was infected. But yeah, that was not the right thing to do. But I could not get back to my surgeon because my retina had detached. I really was stuck with no one. no way to get to him to take care of it, because I was dealing with something far more urgent, not going blind in my left eye. So it certainly is not a decision I would have been like, oh, let me just take my own drain out, because I don't feel like going to a doctor's appointment. No, nothing like that. I had no choice, knew I wasn't getting back to him anytime soon with what was going on with my eye, and almost daily trips back and forth to Westchester from where I was staying. And so sometimes you have to make a decision. And then luckily, like I said, my primary was willing to take a look at it, and right away got me on an antibiotic for it. I am lucky that some really great doctors and nurses took care of me, and I'm just very happy to be here telling you all this, because things could have gone really badly, and I'm just really thankful that I'm home. Like I said, I'm home with my kiddo, my dog, and yeah, I'm a homebody. I admit it. Even though I was around people I love and, where I come from, I still wanted to be home. So bad. Especially with this craziness going on in the world, I wanted to be home. And to have the whole retinal detachment emergency surgery thing, thrown into the mix when you're not expecting it. I mean, not that you're ever expecting it, but you think you're already there for bad enough, like, okay, I'm in for 2 weeks of pain, while I recover from the skin removal surgery is really not that painful. In fact, there's quite a bit of numbness where the incision is. But the diastasis, the muscle repair, that is painful recovery. So you kind of are expecting a certain degree of being miserable. And then on top of that, while you're recovering, to have something as emergent as your retina detach really kind of is like a little overwhelming. It really was a little overwhelming. And again, I am just incredibly fortunate to have the friends and family and to have gotten the excellent medical care that I finally got. The initial triage and all at Westchester was awful. But once I got the surgeon, the surgery I described, it was brutal. And when I talked to the surgeon afterwards, because they had to then they did the cryo first. And then a couple days later ended up going in with the laser over the whole area that had been done with the cryo. And I talked to him, and I said, I don't know if you're aware, because, what I experienced, I'm no wuss. The fact that I started dry heaving just from the sheer excruciating pain of what was being done to me. I just said to him, maybe you're not aware of how much that hurts. Because he said it was a new piece of equipment that was not the one that they used at the hospital. And it's a very experienced surgeon, but new to this facility and new to their equipment. And he said to me that he felt terrible about how my procedure went, and that he had already spoken to them about getting a different type of piece of equipment, or giving sedation so the person's not awake. That he said he really felt awful when he realized, but that mid-surgery he couldn't stop or I would have been blind. So, hopefully nobody else will go through that, because he will make whatever changes need to be made so that no one else has to. Either they change the equipment that's being used so it doesn't cause as much pain for the procedure, or they decide that this is something that they need to put you out for. But again, the end result is 20/20 vision, which is what I have had my whole life, other than during the time where my cataracts were developing and you have to wait for them to get to a certain point before they're able to remove them. That was the only time in my life that I had other than 20/20 vision. So when this happened and suddenly I couldn't see out of one eye, it was really scary. Again, thank you for being here with me. Thank you for the well wishes from people who, have reached out to me, and friends, neighbors who knew what was going on. And just, like I said, you or someone you know is having weird symptoms, get it checked out. Get it checked out right away. It's better to have someone say, "Oh, it was nothing, this could have waited, it wasn't a big deal," or, "Oh, don't worry, it's something that'll go away on its own." It's better to hear that than to hear, "I'm really sorry, I wish you came in sooner because now there's nothing we can do for you." No one ever wants to hear that. So please take good care of yourself and those you love. And during this time, while we're all having to be careful about this virus, remember, hand sanitizer was developed and remains a second line of defense. The best hand hygiene is washing your hands with soap and running water for at a minimum of 20, preferably 30 seconds. The soap and the friction and the rinsing off of the stuff is superior to hand sanitizer. So the fact that it's getting impossible to get your hands on hand sanitizer, don't let that freak you out so much. Soap and water is better. It always has been. Hand sanitizer was developed as something to just quickly do until you could go wash your hands. That's how it was developed to be used by medical staff in hospitals. And, as it became more common for people to use at home and in other places, we all seemed to forget that it's not better than washing your hands. It's there because there's no convenient sink to use at that location. I decided that if I don't have hand sanitizer, I'm just going to have a little bar of soap in a baggie in my coat pocket. So if I go out somewhere and have to use a public restroom to wash my hands, I've got my own soap in my pocket, and I'm going to have cleaner hands than someone who just took a pump of the whatever brand sanitizer. And a lot of these cheaper brands of sanitizer don't even have a high enough alcohol content to meet the CDC requirement for this particular virus. So don't be complacent or think that using hand sanitizer is the best protection for yourself. Washing your hands with soap and water, getting that friction, rubbing those fingers together, rubbing those hands all over all surfaces, rinsing thoroughly, that is better than hand sanitizer. And of course you want to moisturize your hands too, because you don't want cracked skin, because you don't want an entry point for infection. So as people are starting to freak out a little bit because they can't get their hands on rubbing alcohol or hand sanitizer, good old soap and water, people. And if we have to carry it in a little sandwich bag in our pocket, then that's what we do. And we use common sense about touching stuff. And, an elbow bump instead of a handshake. Until this passes, we just all have to use common sense. Because unlike other countries where the government has actively, aggressively tested and quarantined and made masks and sanitizer and, various things readily available, unfortunately our government has not chosen to do that. So we need to have the common sense ourselves to take care of ourselves and the people we care about. So be smart, be safe, and be well until the next time we talk. Have a great night, great day, great weekend.